Hello there, guys. What's up? Welcome back to the Cyro Sports Hour Podcast, and, well, we got a lot to cover today, you know? I know there's a lot that happened today, but I'll get to that later, but anyways, hope you all are doing well on this Thursday afternoon. Got a lot of news. We got a lot of news to talk about today. You know, NFL, regular season's over, postseason football is here, even though good for some, it went bad for others. But, yeah, so last week we had a bunch of wild card games. We kicked off Super Wild Card weekend for the NFL. We kicked it off with the Los Angeles Chargers heading to Houston to play C.J. Stroud and the Texans, and Chargers got off to an early 6-0 lead against the Texans, and that was the only thing that went well for them, because the rest of the game was a slobber fest. The Texans came in, defeated them 31-12. We'll go to Kansas City this week to play a fledgling Kansas City Chiefs team. Second wild card game, we had rivals going at it. We had the Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Baltimore to play the Ravens, and another blowout. The Ravens just had the Steelers number again. Steelers lost 4 in a row. This made their 5th straight loss. And it didn't go well. Wilson and Justin Fields are both free agents in the offseason. And there's a lot of questions about Mike Tomlin's future. There's a talk about, is he going to be traded? Are they going to hold on to him? If I had to guess, they're going to hold on to him just because of that winning record streak that he had. Because he hasn't had a losing record since he became the head coach of the Steelers back in 2007. But then again, it's football. We've seen it before. We've seen shockers. And, there's really nothing more to it. And then Sunday's wild card slot of games, we had Jordan Love and the 7th seed Green Bay Packers. Well, no, actually no. I forgot a game. We had rookie Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos going to Baltimore to face MVP hopeful Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And that was another game that really was just a blowout. Denver took the lead early on a Bo Nix 43-yard touchdown pass to fellow Oregon rookie Troy Franklin. But after that, it was all Bills from there. Bills came in, won 31-7. Josh Allen played phenomenal, trying to make a case on why he should be the MVP of this season. 272 yards, 2 touchdowns for Josh Allen. James Cook had 120 yards and a touchdown. Sorry, my glasses are just a little. But, yeah, Buffalo dominated the game all the way around. They host Baltimore next week, or this week, I should say, at Highmark Stadium in Buffalo. That should be a good game. That's personally my pick, that whoever wins that game next between the Ravens and the Bills, that's my pick personally for the AFC to go to the Super Bowl. Just because I feel like the Chiefs, we've seen what the Chiefs can do, like to turn it around come playoffs if they struggle, but I feel like that's just how it is. And then the second game, we had Jordan Love and the 7th seed Green Bay Packers heading to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. And this game, score says it was close, but this game was really never close. Like, Packers got the ball, won the toss, elected to receive, and Keyshawn Nixon took it back. He fumbled. It might have been a helmet to helmet. There was a helmet to helmet on the play, but they didn't call it. They claim the Eagles got the ball back, even though if you watch the footage back, it looks like Keyshawn Nixon had the ball in his hand, And then the Eagles went and scored an 11-yard touchdown. So it was pretty much doomed for the Packers from the get-go. I pretty much knew watching that game that once that happened, it was pretty much game over. Jordan Love threw 3 interceptions, 212 yards, wasn't very good. Josh Jacobs played great. The defense was pretty good. Packers, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs left the games with injuries. They were down 2 linemen as well. So overall, just not a good game for Green Bay. They get to host the Rams, and they get to host the divisional round. So then the second game of the night, the final game of the night, we had rookie sensation Jaden Daniels leading the Commanders to Tampa Bay to face Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium. It was a fun game. Watching that. That was like the best game of Wild Card Weekend. Both teams, wasn't high scoring. It was only 23-20, but it was a really fun game. 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels was 24 for 35, 268 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So Jaden Daniels is also Washington's leading rusher. It came down to a Zane Gonzalez field goal as time expired to send Washington to go play Detroit this week. And Zane Gonzalez, moments before the kick, he was actually adjusting his sock and his shoe because it was revealed that he has a case of OCD and they like to be perfect. But, whatever adjustments he made, it worked out. Because Washington came in, I wouldn't say upset Tampa. I feel like upset is kind of not the word to use because, well, they were already kind of winning. They were already, that was a toss-up. And then our last game of Super Wild Card Weekend, Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings played the Rams in Arizona. The game could not be held. The game originally was supposed to be held in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, which is where the Rams play, but due to the wildfires happening in California and in Los Angeles, the league thought it best to move the game to State Farm Stadium in Arizona. Now, which, the Cardinals made the Rams. It sounds weird, Cardinals are a rival of the Rams, but the Cardinals tried their best to make the Rams feel at home. They sent 2 private jets to get the Rams and fly them and let them use their facilities. They picked State Farm Stadium, which, as a Cardinals fan, had to be really weird to have the Rams logos painted on your stadium. Not just half of it like they would for the Super Bowl, but have decked out in Rams stuff. But in all seriousness, though, my heart goes out to those who've lost stuff or who have lost their homes, lost anything because of the wildfires. It's a very scary situation out there. I'm hoping the best for everybody. I'm only hoping that our first responders are doing their jobs well. Hope everything is going well over there. But the game itself, like the other wild card games, was pretty much a blowout. The Rams blew them out of the water, winning 27-9. Sam Darnold was sacked 9 times, had 2 crucial turnovers, and it was not a fun game if you were a Vikings fan. And so the Vikings head into the offseason with a lot of questions. Sam Darnold obviously had a resurgence in Minnesota. He had a career year there, turned it around. He was supposed to have a QB battle with rookie J.J. McCarthy in the offseason, but we know J.J. McCarthy tore his ACL or meniscus, missed the entire year, and it became Sam Darnold's show. There was a lot of Sam Darnold doubters. I will admit, I was a Sam Darnold doubter. I will take full responsibility for that. And to go in and play like he did, because he played like one of the best quarterbacks this season. He made his first Pro Bowl, and it just goes to show you that if you're put in the right situation with the right organization, you can be a good quarterback. Because it didn't help that he got drafted to the Jets, a place that quarterbacks aren't, they haven't really had a successful quarterback. Aaron Rodgers had good stats, but I wouldn't say their last successful quarterback that had a good year was probably Mark Sanchez when they went to back-to-back AFC title games in 2009, 2010. But Sam Darnold then, they moved on from him for Zach Wilson. Sam Darnold went to Carolina. Kind of the same story as the Jets. He didn't do well at all. So last year, San Francisco signed him to a one-year contract to be the backup to Brock Purdy. He did get some playing time there. And then Vikings took a chance on him. He made the best of his opportunity with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hockenson, Aaron Jones. He already had the pieces around him, had a really good year. The last few weeks, though, we kind of fell back to earth a bit. So it'll be interesting to see what Minnesota does, because there's talk that they want Sam Darnold back. But then it leaves the future for J.J. McCarthy. Like, what does J.J. McCarthy do then? Like, do you trade him? Do you trade J.J. McCarthy to a team that might need a quarterback in the future? Do you hold on to him, let Sam Darnold walk because you think he's only a one-year wonder? I don't know. I don't know what the future holds there, but it'll be something to keep an eye on. Because Sam Darnold will have plenty of suitors, I feel like, because it'll depend on the draft and what teams go quarterback. Because you got to figure the quarterback-needy teams right now are the Titans. They have the number one pick right now, but they're probably going to trade down if I had to guess. Browns, because Deshaun Watson, it was reported that Deshaun Watson probably will miss all next year because he ruptured his other Achilles. So, and probably, if I want to guess, he's probably played his last game in Cleveland as the Browns starting quarterback. You got to figure Giants need a quarterback. That whole situation there. Aiden O'Connell to me is an NFL quarterback, but he's not a starting quarterback. He's more of a bridge guy. Jets will be interesting if they need a quarterback or not. I think they'll either draft or sign one just because, with Aaron Rodgers possibly retiring, they don't think he's going to be back anyways, so we'll see what happens there. I'm trying to think who else probably needs to. Pittsburgh Fields, so Saints maybe, so lots to keep an eye on there. And so now, we got our playoff bracket this week. We got the Chiefs and the Texans. We got Chiefs and Texans and Lions and Commanders next week. This Saturday. And then the Sunday games, we got the Rams and the Eagles and the Ravens and Bills. So overall, pretty nice field for the divisional round. See who goes to the Super Bowl. Like, lots and lots to discuss. And the second part of this stream I want to get to is the coaching carousel. So obviously, this year, several teams, as is every year, there's several teams looking for a head coach. I'll break them down one by one. The first one was the New England Patriots. They fired Gerard Mayo literally right after they lost, right after they won their season finale against Buffalo, because there was a lot of stuff about how he was a soft coach, even though he had big shoes to fill, following in the footsteps of Bill Belichick. Those are some, when I say tough, those are tough shoes to fill, because Bill Belichick is probably might be the greatest head coach of all time. So and they already hired their head coach. They went out and they got Mike Vrabel, former Patriots linebacker in the 2000s, and former Titans head coach from 2018 to 2023. Which I think this is a great hire for Tennessee for New England, because Vrabel already knows the system. Sorry, my glasses are just driving me insane, but he already knows the system there, and he knows how they operate. He's played there for so many years. So definitely be interesting. Definitely be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting. He had a 54-45 record with the Titans. He went to the playoffs 3 times. 3 straight seasons, 2019, 2021, where he was partially responsible for developing Derrick Henry as a starting quarterback, or Derrick Henry as one of the league's best running backs. We all know 2019 Tennessee had that miracle run where they went all the way to the AFC title game after they first beat Mike Vrabel's old team, Bill Belichick and the Patriots, in the wild card, and they got all the way to the AFC title game, and they lost to the Chiefs, who went on to win Super Bowl. Then they lost to the Ravens in the wild card the next year, and then they lost to the Bengals in 2021, which we all know about what happened with the Bengals in 2021. They went all the way to the Super Bowl, lost to the Rams. The last 2 years of his tenure, they went 7-10, 6-11 respectively, but that talent on that roster was just kind of depleted, so there really wasn't a whole lot there. Then they fired him. This year he had a consultant job with the Browns. He was an assistant. He was an assistant, and then January 12th he was hired to be the next head coach of the New England Patriots, which, like I said, is a great hire for New England because he brings in great attitude. They already have the pieces. They got a young quarterback. With a lot of potential in Drake May. And that's one of the best young quarterbacks that a head coach is going to want to develop around. It's no different than it's just crazy like that. As I'm trying to get the rest of the carousel set up, but NFL Network is being a doozy. But the Bears head coaching job also is open. Obviously, we know about the Bears. They got Caleb Williams, the number one pick in the draft this past season. Had a decent rookie year. Nothing elite standing because there's nothing crazy about that, but the Bears have interviewed names, such as Ron Rivera. Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson's probably the should be number one on anyone's head coaching list because of what he's done with Detroit. They also interviewed former Seahawks coach Pete Carroll. So that'll be something interesting to monitor there. They also, last week, they requested to interview Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy, but they were turned down. And part of the way with the Cowboys, I'll explain that later. And there's a lot of work there that they can do. So we'll see what happens with the Bears job. I think Ben Johnson is the guy there. He's got a bunch of cap space. He's got a bunch of draft picks. He's got a quarterback with a bunch of potential. And I think he's the one to go to do it. Jacksonville, same thing. They also interviewed Ben Johnson. They interviewed Aaron Glenn too. Robert Saleh they interviewed the other day. It sounds like Robert Saleh they really like, so that's something to monitor there. They got Trevor Lawrence. They got a decent team. Raiders, obviously Tom Brady is, I guess, responsible leading the search for the Raiders head coaching job after Antonio Pierce was fired. Ben Johnson they interviewed. Pete Carroll they interviewed. So they're trying to take it seriously. They're trying to actually, find their guy. I can see Pete Carroll be a fit there. Because Pete Carroll, to me, feels like a coach that Tom Brady would bring in if he was the general manager or the owner for a team. Like, that just seems like a Pete Carroll. That just seems like a Tom Brady hire right there. The Jets interviewed, Jeff Albrecht, Ron Rivera, and a shocking one that they interviewed is Rex Ryan, former Jets head coach. He coached there from 2009, 2013 he coached there, and last Jets coach to get into the playoffs, and He wanted the job. They interviewed him. He's a long shot to get it. They also interviewed Aaron Glenn. They have that. The Jets are his number one go-to. The Jets are in a weird flux right now because no one knows the future of half their teams. No one knows the future of half the team because it'll all depend on what Aaron Rodgers does. It doesn't sound like Aaron Rodgers is going to be back with the Jets next year, so I guess if Aaron Glenn comes in and they draft a quarterback, he's got his own guys to build from and go from there. The Jets have a lot of future. The head coaching job I haven't talked about is the Saints. That's because the Saints aren't in a good position. They're once again stuck in cap derogatory, or they got a lot of aging players, a lot of bad contracts. Their team, like I said, is old. The job's just not very appealing. Aaron Glenn also interviewed there, but I don't know. Whoever takes the Saints job is going to have a lot on their plate because they gotta not only rebuild the team, like the plate. They gotta rebuild that roster too because that roster is not getting younger. So I think the Saints are gonna come as a very young team next year. They're gonna cut almost every veteran because it's what they need to do because they're not getting much better at all. And then Dallas Cowboys are also a new team in the head coaching carousel. They parted ways with head coach Mike McCarthy after the two sides couldn't come to an agreement, so they parted ways. McCarthy has had interviews with the Bears and the Saints. He's interested in those jobs, so Mike McCarthy might be the second best or third best name on the list on the candidacy for a head coaching job, depending on where you rank Pete Carroll. Ben Johnson's definitely number one now that Mike Vrabel is hired. I think Ben Johnson was number one regardless. But so Jerry Jones, yet a coach to lead the Cowboys. They've already known interviews I know they had Kellen Moore and former Cowboys tight end Jason Witten. Yeah, I intentionally paused after saying Jason Witten because, well, who in their right mind would hire Jason Witten as a head coach? It's no disrespect. It's no disrespect by any means to Jason Witten, but again, it's Jerry Jones we're talking about, and it's all about. I know they want Ben Johnson too. That's been linked to Dallas, and they said he would accept it if offered. Deion Sanders. We know what Deion Sanders has done in college with Colorado. He did with Jackson State and Colorado. But the question, and he's a great recruiter, but the problem is what. The problem there is, would he translate to the NFL? Obviously, we know his ties to the Cowboys. He was on the Super Bowl team. He was on the '95 Super Bowl team. So he knows Dallas fairly well. He knows Jerry Jones. But my thing is, would he work in the Dallas system? Would he work in the NFL? Because he also wants to draft Shedeur Sanders if he was to get an NFL head coaching job. The only problem is Dallas already has a quarterback in Dak Prescott. So if he took the head coaching job, he'd probably have to realize, well, hey, I can't bring my son in to be the quarterback unless Jerry Jones is okay with ditching Dak Prescott, which I don't know about you. Dallas doesn't draft rookies to start very often. I think their best bet would be to keep Dak Prescott as their starting quarterback because he's not bad. Could he be better? Yes. He could be a better quarterback, but he's good. He's good enough to lead the Dallas Cowboys. He's what the Cowboys want and need in a quarterback. And I don't know why they'd want to start all over with Shedeur Sanders, all things considered with their injuries and stuff and the inconsistency in Dallas. Plus, we saw what they did with Cooper Rush. There's no disrespect to Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush played really good in the short little time that he did in the half the season he did for Dallas this year, but that's gonna be quite a lot. So yeah, it's interesting to see what's gonna happen there. We'll see what happens in the monitor the head coaching jobs. Hopefully by next week we'll have some more steam. So if I do this again next week, we'll see what happens. So now the tough part. And so, NBA, not a lot happening in the NBA. I really haven't watched the NBA all too much. Giannis Antetokounmpo leads the MLB in All-Star voting once again, trying to Nikola Jokic leads the West, Giannis leads the East, and like I said, the entire NBA. So I really haven't watched a lot of the NBA lately. Another news thing: EA Sports announced College Football 26 to release sometime this summer. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Baseball, not a lot's really happened. Justin Verlander signed with the Giants. Jesse Winker went back to the Mets today. What else? Who else signed? There's some others who signed. Roki Sasaki sweepstakes are picking up. Sounds like the Padres, Dodgers, Blue Jays are the finalists there. Sounds like I saw from a source earlier today that Dodgers are the likely landing spot, so that'll be a situation of honor. He's the best international prospect available, so it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens. So, I have a feeling he's going to be wearing Dodger blue this year anyways. We're also less than a month away from spring training, so that'll be something. Just trying to think if there's... Corbin Burns signed with the Diamondbacks. That's a big move for them. I think I talked about that possibly in the last time I did this. But just trying to think. There's really nothing else major that happened in terms of free agency or trades. But now it's the part of the live stream I dreaded. So, as you guys can tell by what I'm wearing, hat, shirt, as you can tell, I am a fan of the Milwaukee Brewers. I've been a fan of the Brewers my whole life. I've been there for the bad times, been there for the good times. Three division titles the last 4 years, 4 since 2018. Been one of the better teams in baseball over the last 8 years, so been a lot of consistency there. We all know about their reputation as a small market team and their ability not to spend a lot of money. This year they already traded away Devin Williams and let Willie Adames go. So, but even through the good and the bad times, there was always one thing that always made the Brewers a household name, aside from their recency bias and being good. But it wasn't on the field. It was in the booth. We all know Brian Anderson, NBA and TNT broadcaster. He's the Brewers play-by-play guy on TV. We all know about that and his crew. But it was today, as you can see too by the corner of the screen here. Legendary Brewers baseball broadcaster and MLB radio broadcaster Bob Uecker today at the age of 90. And damn, this might be apologize for any, emotions and stuff that happens to here. It's just 54 years is a long time to be doing what he did. He started as an MLB player. He played for he was drafted by the Braves. He signed a contract with the Milwaukee Braves, 1956. He got called up in 1962 by the Braves. He wasn't very well player. He'll tell you that. He would have said that. He always made fun of his playing career in baseball. Like most people when bad stats are brought up, they're always like irritated about it. Bob Uecker just made a joke of his baseball career. Yeah. So, and then, he went on to the St. Louis Cardinals. He won a World Series there. He then, after 2 years there, went to the Phillies, played 2 years there. Then in 1967, he returned to the Braves. This time they were in Atlanta, though. Then he retired from baseball. He had a career batting average of 200. He always made, like I said, he always made jokes about his baseball career, no matter what happened. And then, retired as a player. 1971, he was brought upon to be the radio. He was called by Brewers owner Bud Selig because the year before the Brewers had been created in Milwaukee after relocating from Seattle, where they needed a radio guy. So Bud Selig called Bob Uecker and asked him if he wanted to be the play-by-play guy for the radio, and he was. And he lasted there pretty much all the way. He lasted there pretty much all the way through the rest of his life, through 2024. He top 5 announcer of all. I agree there. And and he mentored so many people on the radio, and he became Milwaukee royalty not only because he was from Milwaukee, but because of his personality too. Like, I loved watching stuff with him because he always made people laugh. I loved watching everything. He made people laugh, whole bunch of stuff, yada yada. But obviously the most memorable moments came in the 80s when Brewers went to their only World Series. He called Game 5 of the 1982 ALCS, which sent Milwaukee to their only World Series. The 80s though. 70s and 80s is when he really took off as not just the Brewers broadcasting guy, but he also became like a nationwide broadcaster. He would call games for ABC and NBC in the 70s through the 90s. He'd call those. We all know about him being in Major League, where he was Harry Doyle, and we all know him by just a bit after one in Major League 2 when the homer is like, crap. But yeah, so we all know about him in Major League, which was filmed in Milwaukee, so it made sense why he was in it. He was all over television in the 80s in Milwaukee too, being in the Miller Lite ads, which was that he did some work with WWE in the 80s too. He was at WrestleMania 3 and 4. He was a guest ring announcer. There. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2010. And like with his personality, he made the Brewers. He made it work in WWE as well. So it's actually crazy. This is something that not a lot of people know, but until 2021, he was never actually under an official Brewers contract. He had a handshake agreement with ownership every year. Because in the 80s, I forgot where I read this, but in the 80s, he was the Yankees to be their radio broadcaster guy, and Uecker considered it. But then he realized, he's like, Milwaukee's home. This is home for me. So he turned them down, and he continued another 40 years calling Brewer games on the radio. And the last decade or so, he winded down. He cut back his workload because he had prior health issues, and he was getting older. He didn't do very many road games. He didn't do any road games the last few years. So he only did home games, and even then, his workload started to cut back there. But the reason why he was signed a contract in 2021 so he could be put under the Brewers health insurance plan. But it was, there was a big run. So like I said, he was always well known outside of base. Joke that he was born in Illinois. He made 100 guest appearances on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, which the same Tonight Show that Jimmy Fallon hosts. He's also one of the only pitchers, I think, to have hit a home run off of Sandy Koufax, I think. But it's just crazy, you know. And for his catchphrase is get up, get out of here, gone. I never got bored of listening to Euchre on the radio. It was when I couldn't watch games on TV, I always made sure that Brewer games were on the radio, because it's like, oh hey, Bob Euchre's on the radio. Like never failed to make me laugh. It was always a joy listening to Bob Euchre on the radio. I know I'm speaking like someone who knew him. I didn't know him. I just obviously knew of him because, like I said, I'm a Brewer fan, so it was all that. He touched a lot of people, though. The last few years, you know, when the Brewers won the division and stuff, he was brought down to the clubhouse to celebrate with the team. There's a viral video of him when the Brewers won the division this past year in the clubhouse, and, you know, Brewers manager Pat Murphy, like, had his arm around him and was talking about, like, you know, like, we wouldn't be here where we are today. Like, this man has done so much for us. Like, gentlemen, Bob Euchre, and Bob Euchre, being his humorous self, was like, I peed my pants. It's like even though he was 90, he said the team still made him feel that when he was around the team, he felt young again. He developed a great relationship with Brewers star Christian Yelich, who I bet Christian Yelich is going through it himself right now too, because he said Bob Euchre was like a father figure to him. Euchre's last game on the radio was this past October when the Mets came to Milwaukee, and shocked the Brewers, won in the West. Even listening on the radio, just thinking about that, you know, just how he said it, it's like saying it stung. I don't think anyone knew that would be the last time that he would be on the radio calling a Brewers game. He was the voice of our childhood, of most of our parents' childhood, and some of our grandparents' childhoods too, as crazy as it sounds. But, you know, they did a lot on him this year. I know I think he had a CBS special, he had a MLB Network and Fox special that they aired, and it's just crazy because it's like he was one of those guys where you don't know him, but because of the impact he made for your team and for your city, it's like losing a part of you. And, you know, we still got a good group of radio guys without him. Lane Grindle, on days that Brian Anderson's in the booth, Jeff Levering does the radio, but it's never going to be the same. You know, I remember, I think it was 2008 was my first year watching Brewers baseball and listening to them, and, you know, and getting to learn about Bob Euchre and his story, just everything about it. You know, he was part of the reason why I wanted to get into, like, you know, the sports media field, because, like, I followed the careers of so many well-known broadcasters that, you know, this could be me one day. And it's just crazy because, like I said, he'd also been dealing with, like, a small cell lung cancer or whatever, but it was, yeah, the Brewers were the ones who broke the news this morning, and I'd just woken up too, so that wasn't something I expected to wake up to. It was was just kind of shocking because it's like I'm one of those people where if I know someone's that old, especially in the sports field, just cherish the moments you got because you didn't know when they were going to be over. I didn't think that would be this soon. I thought, he only got to call the one Brewers World Series in his life. And, it's kind of painful knowing that if we finally do win the World Series, he won't be on the radio. It sucks. Just because of what he's meant to so many people. Here it comes, but I was fortunate, though, that he got to be a broadcaster for the Brewers. I was glad to listen to him for the 15 years that I was able to. Someone went outside in the Miller Park parking lot today. Sorry, American Family Field. Went in the parking lot, and one of the things you see when you're walking by, when you're walking to the concourse outside, is a Bob Uecker statue. And some fan left a Miller Lite can unopened. And they put it at the base of the statue. Which is what he would have wanted. Sorry. Just did want to reach this part of the stream. Yeah, top 5. Yeah. He was also inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2003. He had 2 kids that he left behind. Tributes have been pouring out. Brian Anderson narrated a video that the Brewers posted about an hour ago. Because, again, Brian Anderson got to work with him. Think of him as a colleague since he came in. He was a rec on MLB Network today. Bud Selig, the Brewers' regional owner, spoke out. Let's dedicate 2025 to Bob Uecker. We may have lost pieces in Milwaukee in terms of talent, but this team is going to have a spark in them. Let's win it for him this year. Let's win him that World Series. Alright, that's gonna wrap it up for me here. Emotion at the end, but you guys have a safe trip in the next one. Peace.